I am Ms. Cummings, and I proudly serve as the PMO Advisor Executive Assistant here at Tacit Growth Strategies, seen in O, the Oprah Magazine, Entrepreneur, Forbes, San Antonio Business Journal, and more. Tacit Growth Strategies is an awarded contractor of the Purchasing Cooperative of America, a national purchasing cooperative for public sector entities in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. We pride ourselves on being a one-stop shop for all things grants, impact investment, and project management. At Tacit Growth Strategies, we give our clients peace of mind as we help them stay focused on doing what they do best. And I would like to introduce our speaker today, the founder and CEO of Tacit Growth Strategies, Ms. Luana Chambers-Lawson.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cummings. This is a fantastic opportunity for us to have a nice, simple, solid discussion today. I know you were telling me that our topic is going to be around managing grant projects and thinking about the teaming aspect of that. So I'm very excited to talk about that. And I know you've got some questions, so go ahead and let me know what your questions are, and we'll go ahead and kick off our discussion today.
Okay. So once again, our discussion is managing grant projects as a team. So one question I have is how do you go by delegating the roles for the team?
I would say that when you're thinking about delegating the roles for your team members on a grant project, the first question that you need to answer and clarify for everyone involved is who exactly is able to contribute, right? And what type of contribution will they be making to this effort? One of the things that we like to talk about is how, especially in a nonprofit startup environment, the strength of your application is really going to be based on the strength of your board and its capacity to really be a functioning, working, trusting board, right? When you're delegating roles in terms of like, okay, who's going to help us with writing the budget? Who's going to help us with justifying any variance as it relates to the budget? You know, why do we have deficits, or why do we have excess? You know, who's going to have that conversation to make sure that we're staying on par with our budgets? The next question would be around technology. What types of technologies will we need in order to be able to actually fulfill the grant that we're looking to pursue? And that's one of the things a lot of people forget. You know, you've got to be thinking about the after. You know, right now you're in the position to where you can dream and you can sort of pursue without necessarily having any requirements or any, anything to tie you down. But that's only for right now. Once the money comes down, so too does the actual strings that come with that money. And the strings are tied to compliance. So if you are, working on a proposal that ultimately, when it's awarded, is going to expect for you to be able to deliver testing kits to 100 people every month, if you don't actually have the technology to be able to track the number of inventory that you have for testing kits, but then also be able to track what happens when the kit gets to that family or that individual, what type of communications come back from them receiving the testing kits, et cetera. If you don't have all that laid out, then you're going to be putting yourself in a position where you're going to automatically be out of compliance with that grant before you even got started, right? So those are the types of things when you're thinking about teaming. Those are the aspects that you have to be considering up front. You've got to be thinking about the strengths of your board, the strengths of your other categories of volunteers. Not everybody at that nonprofit organization, for example, is going to be on the board of directors. Some of those people who are coming to volunteer for you might be serving in a more laissez-faire capacity, where they're sort of coming for an event that they really care about every year. If you have like a summer camp, they may only want to come out and support the summer camp every year. They may not want to help with other fundraising, or they may not want to help with stewardship or things of that sort because that's not their jam. Their jam might just be that one thing. And guess what? That's fine. We have a way to essentially ensure that they can still contribute to the organization's success by being very specific and narrowly focused on that particular program that they care most about, right? So when you think about teaming, you've got to be thinking about a few different things. Teaming as it relates to funding opportunity. Everyone's role at a nonprofit is to make sure that it's not only growing, it's maintaining, and it's sustainable. That's everybody's role. For that reason, everyone is charged with thinking creatively about traditional and non-traditional funding opportunity to help sustain, grow, and maintain that nonprofit that they're volunteering for. Essentially, that's your fiduciary duty, right? Is to make sure that what you're doing today is something that will be available to generations in the future. That's the hope. That should be the whole point of your work for today. From a funding opportunity standpoint, you've got to be thinking about not only grants, but contract opportunities. What are other types of ways, from a, contract standpoint, what are other types of partnerships that you could be considering that would help to not only get your nonprofit out there, but also get you out there with a trusted entity, a trusted public or private or other, because we got a lot of benefit corps and all that, NGOs and all those other types of classifications of organizations nowadays. What other entity would lend its reputation to your organization so that you can get in front of more traditional financing options at one point? Maybe just getting started, you've got to look at non-traditional things. So that's one thing to think about, is funding opportunities. The next thing to think about is the actual grant and proposal writing side of the house, right? So from a grant and proposal writing standpoint, the people that are going to contribute to that are going to be a different audience of stakeholders. And the reason why they're going to be a different audience of stakeholders is because from the editing standpoint, you don't want too many hands in the pot. At some point, the sous chef is the sous chef and the master chef is the master chef, right? Everybody's got a role and there's an interdependence that is there, but there also is a clear understanding of who is ultimately accountable for the work. That's where the project management teaming aspect comes into play, right? We talk about this with our team all the time as a project management office. Our team understands that their work, for their individual bits of work, they are responsible. But ultimately, Ms. Cummings is the one who's accountable for that work, or I'm accountable for that work. That's how it just boils down, because ultimately we're the ones who are responsible for the praise or the blame. The buck stops with us. So we've got to be thinking about that. That's another aspect to be thinking about, is the actual writing component. Who's going to lead on the writing of the grant or the proposal, right? The next thing to think about is implementation. So who all is going to be involved if you are awarded, partially or fully, right? You might not get the full award that you were expecting or that you budgeted for, but you get a partial and you accept it. You don't withdraw, you accept it as partial. Okay, cool. Now that means that that full-time position, I'm just giving an example, that full-time position that you were banking on is actually going to be cut to a part-time position now because you didn't get the full funding, you only got partial. All right, that's fine. We can still make it happen. What that means now is, from an implementation support standpoint, you might be able to only make it happen because that part-time position will be supplemented with volunteer time from a board member or a few board members, right? Other fiduciaries that can come in and help to cover the bases, cover the ground that part-time employee won't be able to cover because there's only so many hours of work that they can be paid for, right? So you got to be thinking about implementation support, and from a strengths and galvanization standpoint, who makes the most sense to be placed in what positions to help, again, forward the organization overall And then, of course, these project or program specific components of work that we're seeking grants for, right? The next part of that is compliance. There's always got to be someone, preferably a board member, or I should say preferably the board, right? The board of directors or the board of trustees is really going to serve in an oversight capacity, right? Their job is compliance. Their job is overseeing the operations, the programs, the financial status of the organization overall. So when you build in compliance into your grants, that's the kind of conversation that you're going to have at the application. At the application, you're going to let the grantor know, as you're considering us for funding, please understand that not only are we banking on our staff and our leadership, our organizational leadership, to help make sure that this work is done with fidelity, they are also being held accountable by a board of directors that has, of course, the legal responsibility to hire, fire, et cetera, if said compliance is not met or exceeded or met, and we are expecting it to be met, right? So they can do more in terms of rewards and recognitions and things of that sort. So that is the kind of conversation that you want to have to reassure the grantor essentially that there are checks and balances here. They are institutionalized. The last thing that I'll touch on there as it relates to teaming is the programmatic and financial reporting side of the house. So programmatic and financial reporting are going to be similar to the grant proposal writing side of the house as it relates to teaming. Not everybody is going to be involved, but everyone has a part to contribute to that. So again, you want to have that lead, preferably not be the same lead that was the grant or proposal on the grant proposal writing side of the house, because you don't want that person or those couple of people to essentially be the ones that carry most of the weight of implementing these grant programs the correct way. You want everyone to understand what it takes to be compliant. Therefore, you need to make sure that you are sort of democratizing access as it relates to who knows what is required on the grant, who knows how to meet those requirements in their specific way, because everybody's going to have their own swim lane. So from a grant standpoint, here's your responsibility as it relates to this. From a sponsorship standpoint, here's your responsibility. From a development, major gifts, et cetera, this is your responsibility. From an accounting standpoint, here's your responsibility. So everyone understands compliance from where they sit. That's the point. So from the teaming aspect, that's where delegation and that true visionary leadership really can make or break not only the grant pursuit, but also the organization overall, if there isn't the clarification there that the job of our leadership is to make sure that everyone is properly contributing to and being a part of the continuous improvement, the total quality management of the grant funded programs and projects that we have, and the impact investment funded projects and programs that we have, and the loan funded grants and projects, all of the different types of funding that we have. Everyone has to understand what the requirements are going to be as according to the type of funding that is sort of propelling or founding that particular grant project or grant program.
I think you kind of tapped into a lot of questions. Well, a couple of questions that I was going to ask, like about oversight and keeping good records. And I think you tapped into that.
Yes, ma'am. And because, as it relates to archiving, and we talk about this all the time as a project management office, and this is why I love the work that we do at Tacit Growth Strategies, because what we do is essentially act as a repository for our clients. As leadership changes and as volunteers come and go and things, shift, we are that constant to make sure that the organization's work is not only furthered, but also maintained. And, being able to be in the position to keep those lessons learned and to be able to pull upon those as we work with clients and as they, become more professional and more sophisticated in their systems and their operations. It is so important to have that brain trust which is what Tacit Growth Strategies tends to be for our clients, that brain trust that can sort of remind people of where they came from, and so they don't make those same mistakes, but then also that they, keep in mind the lessons that they already did learn. You don't want to forget those things, and memory loss is a big thing, and that's the reason why a lot of our nonprofit and for-profit or entities are falling by the wayside, especially nowadays, is because there is that lack of memory, institutional memory. And so I think for us as a project management office, it's so important for us to be able to, to pay to keep that digital storage and keep that archive and that repository going, and make sure that those files are maintained as well, because most people forget, you store it away, but things, just like in physical form, things deteriorate over time. So do things that are, stored digitally. They deteriorate over time. So because they're transferred from this unit to that cloud, they move around as well. So you've got to have that project management office there that really does sort of serve as an insurance policy for your organization, whether it be a nonprofit or a for-profit entity. So I really appreciate the work that we do. I especially appreciate the work that you do, ma'am. Ms. Cummins is fantastic. And I think that we've covered quite a bit for our discussion today.
Yeah,
I don't see any questions in the live.
We don't have any questions at the moment, but it was a very not only interesting, but it was a great discussion, because I'm sure if someone is listening, they've learned a lot today.
When they listen, because we've got a few people that are listening.
Yeah.
But when they hit that playback, what I'm saying, take those notes.
Yeah. The importance of a team.
Yeah.
And what we do here at Tacit Growth Strategies for Ms. Lawson, like, we work as a team. We come together, we delegate, we manage, we do our oversights, we keep our records. So it's a great thing, over here. Like I said, it's a great opportunity. We have a great time over here, and just excited about this virtual discussion today, because I learned,
Awesome.
I learned a lot just listening.
Excellent. So we'll see you all again next month. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, if you have any questions, always send a comment on YouTube. We can check that out, or send us an email. And you've got our contact information for our website, and our phone number is also on our website too, if you want to give us a call. But thank you so much for your attention, and we'll see you all next month.